Well, Mark chapter 8, beginning at verse number 1, going all the way through to verse number 10. And before we go into the details of the story, let's start with some background. The people who are actually following Christ, they do not know that he is, in fact, the Christ. He has never told anyone that he is the Son of God. The reason they are following him is because of the many miracles that he has performed. Like, for example, Jesus heals a man who was both mute and deaf. So this is why he has drawn a great crowd. So here we are, chapter 8, 4,000 people follow him for 3 days, and eventually they end up in a remote place, and Jesus is going to send them back home. But Jesus has compassion on the people because he notices if he sends them back, they don't have much food and they will faint along the way. So therefore, him and his disciples decide, let's take what we have, realizing that all they have now is just 7 loaves of bread and just a few fish. Let's take that, bless it, break it, and distribute it to the people. And that's what they do. And they feed everyone who is present, and everyone there is satisfied. Now, there is a whole lot more to the story, but there's one thing that I want to pull out of the story, and it's Jesus's compassion that he has for his people, his compassion. And this word compassion is defined as being showing comfort for those who are suffering or who are in need. William Barclay, he is a Scottish author and professor of divinity, and he says these words in one of his commentaries of this actual chapter. In these few verses, he says, and I quote, "Over and over, we see the compassion that Jesus has for men. The most amazing thing is his considerateness." He goes on to describe that considerateness is a virtue that takes in consideration the details of life. Jesus looked at this crowd of people, and he could have sent them back without any food, not concerned about how they'll deal with the hunger pains or the suffering that they may experience along the way. But Christ doesn't do that. He is also not just considering their souls, but he's also considering their natural pains and suffering. So here in this text, we're able to see the compassion of Christ. But here's a question. Why does Christ have compassion for this group of people? I mean, why is he doing this? Is it just because he notices that, there's going to be some people that have a few hunger pains on their way back home? Or, why does he have compassion? Well, we learn in 2 Kings, verse, I believe it's chapter 13, verse 23, that Yahweh's compassion is rooted in the covenant relationship that he has with his people. It's rooted in there. Also, the psalmist says in Psalm 103:13, that as a father has compassion for his children, the Lord has compassion for those who fear him. And what I like is what Paul says, "Praise be to God and the Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in our times of troubles, so that we can comfort those who are in trouble with the same comfort which we have received." So we see here that, yes, Christ is compassionate, but he's not just compassionate because of this particular circumstance or this particular situation. It is rooted in him because of the covenant relationship he has with his people. Not only that, but the Lord is full of compassion. He is full of being concerned about our soul and the details and the sufferings that we go through. And also, we see that he is the Father of compassion, showing us this comfort, not only just so we can hoard this comfort for ourselves, but so that we can distribute this comfort to other people, because we understand what it's like to feel this type of comfort and compassion because we've experienced it from Christ. Again, we're Mark chapter 8, verse 1, going through verse 10. We're going to talk about a lot more in this text. There are a lot of points that we can pull out. Be sure you come back next week so we can continue to talk about this. I hope you got something out of it today. If you were wondering is Christ ever concerned about me in the details of my life, or is he just concerned about my soul? Well, we see here that Christ is not just concerned about our souls, but he's also concerned about the details of our lives.